So, welcome to the DevPortal Strategy webinar. This is a recurring one that I do with like incrementally added new information as I learn more about the space. And today we've got a presentation about our maturity model. And actually, to be really honest, it's more of a value model at this point, and we're working on a maturity model, but I'll explain that in a little bit what I mean with that. A very short introduction for if anybody's new. So we're a boutique consultancy that's fully dedicated to developer portals. We do a bunch of community stuff, not only webinars that are more marketing-y-ish, but also like through community events like the DevPortal Awards, AI the Docs, which is a conference about APIs, AI, and documentation and how it all fits together. Like we got a track coming up in Paris at the API Days next. And then podcasts. I run a podcast. Laura has been running a podcast, and then have a look at our website if you haven't done so yet. There's a lot of resources there for people like you who are considering building developer portals. We build developer portals that evolve with your business. So we have made the conscious decision not to build a single purpose SaaS, but to build a platform that we can use to create a SaaS of one. So it's similar delivery as a SaaS model, but we can build it to your specific requirements and needs, and really go towards like some of the business value that I'll talk about in a moment. And so in this maturity model is to help you to think a bit more, to challenge you, and to challenge our customers and the wider community to think about how your developer portal will be contributing value to your organization on a broader level, and not to get stuck on certain aspects, like the obvious aspects of a developer portal. So without further ado, part one. Why do enterprise companies need a dev portal that evolves together with them? This is I'm going to go a little bit meta. If you know me, like some of the people here, you know that I tend to go a bit meta. But I would like to frame things a little bit broader to explain why we see developer portals. Well, developer portals and API portals and API marketplaces, all of these product categories, because they have become product categories, they all fulfill a very similar place in the world, where they are taking some of your internal capabilities, sometimes actually even real products, API products, and then expose them to the outside, or make it easier for people inside of your organization to find and reuse existing capabilities. There's like this whole API phenomenon that's going on for quite a while now. You could just think about this purely inside of that API category. But I think we're looking at something that's much bigger than that. And that's that societal transformation that I'm talking about. So first, APIs are transforming how businesses operate. In that APIs, from being one of the silos in the past of a business, they're becoming a sort of operation system for the business, enabling much more agile delivery of new recombination of capabilities to address new market opportunities, like faster ways of collaborating. Like I heard the story of an organization where I think it was an insurance, and they had like a certain process that used to take them 3 weeks, and now using AI and APIs, this is taking them like a couple of hours, and stuff like that. This kind of acceleration of processes throughout the whole organization. That is an opportunity, and then also towards the outside of the organization. That is a true opportunity of APIs. But then there's this bigger transformation that APIs are part of, what I call the interface transformation. And interface is one of those words that it's not part of the day-to-day vocabulary of most people. It's a very it's an expensive word, but it's once you start thinking about it, it's really, really interesting. Because I think that digital transformation, well, the big D, well, the big buzzwords that a lot of companies are trying to sell to businesses today, that actually what we're doing is an interface transformation. What I mean with that, because if you look at APIs, there are application programming interfaces, and that interface word that stands for the place where two systems are interacting with each other, and but it's not just about the place where this interaction is happening. There's actually a fundamental shift, a transformation that is happening in how we're interacting. That's a little bit like, I'm a bioengineer by education. It's a little bit like how DNA becomes a language for life. It's something similar. It's a signal boundary language that is being evolved, that is transforming how we do things. Because digital interfaces are not only like convenient ways of getting something done, they're also agreements that make it easier to do things, and that are little by little transform how we do everything, basically. And I've had this for a little while now, that I see interfaces everywhere. Like when I start thinking about interactions that people are having, you'll see that there's a maybe it's just a business process, but you see that these like a lot about creating more efficient and effective businesses is about working out the agreements that are going to dictate how organizations are going to be interfacing with other parts of the organization or people outside of the organization. And if you start looking around, you see interfaces everywhere. Like a telephone number is an interface, like a contact us page. Applications are interfaces for interacting with organizations, like the staff directory, like Google search websites are interfaces, and APIs obviously are interfaces. So there's all of these, interface folklore that's like different ways of how people are used to do something in a certain industry, in a certain job, in a certain type of companies, in a certain country. And there's these agreements that have evolved that that constitutes an interface agreement about, if you ask me this in this format, then I'm going to come back in that format. And what actually is going on, really, I think, is that with digital transformation, with APIs, is that we are mapping out this interface jungle that's all around us. Because we've been at this for a very long time. I probably for as long as we've had organizations like companies, incorporated companies that had business processes that were thinking about how to do certain interactions. We've had these interfaces that's emerged, like a salesperson or a support phone number or a reception. All of these things are different types of interfaces. And what's happening now is that we are mapping out all of these interfaces that are already there, and then we're replacing them little by little with digital interfaces. And I think this is still going to accelerate a lot once we start having AI like that becomes more prominent in the daily world. So what's happening is that digital interfaces are both expanding and unifying this landscape that's all around us. So it's a part, I think, of a bigger trend from human-mediated interactions, where you have people that were acting as an interface for an organization or a group of people, to machine-mediated interactions, where we now have machines interacting on behalf of organizations with other machines that are interacting on behalf of other organizations in the most automated scenario. But along this journey, we started with people that were acting as interfaces for organization, like someone who's selling goods in a shop could be acting as an interface, where you had human-to-human interaction, to developers that build system integrations, custom system integrations, where you have two humans that are facilitating a machine-to-machine interaction, to developers that are building applications or integrations using APIs, where you have a human that is facilitating machine interaction by connecting to an API product that was developed once by a developer, so that you don't need developer-to-developer communication to get things set up. And then the last one, the holy grail that, at least according to some companies, is very close now, is this AI-mediated interactions for secure and scalable interactions on like a single interaction that can be automated, where you have humans that might be asking for a certain interaction to a machine that then is talking to a machine where maybe a developer has prepared an interface, be that a GUI or an API that machine on the other side can use. So this is the progression that is going on. Now, these are not going to go away. For certain interactions, you still want human to human, or you still want people to be driving the interaction. So these are like living in parallel with each other, but more and more interactions will be driven to this, and in some cases even you'll see that even this human-to-human interactions are mediated by a machine that is constraining that interaction, that is making sure that procedures are followed and that structured information is captured, that is facilitating the processes that then follow on after that. And what interfaces you expose from to the outside world will determine what kind of role you can play in the markets and what kind of businesses you can be part of. And it's kind of like the specialization that different species have, where different types of interfaces, like if you look at different insects, they have different ways of interacting with the world, and that defines where they play in the ecosystem. I think something similar is happening with digital companies, or with digital technology and companies of today. So, and then if you don't list out your interfaces, if people have to go and look for your interfaces, or they have to know what to look for in your industry to be able to find it, then I believe that this might become a problem in an AI-mediated world. Not sure, because maybe AI can just find it, even if it's a little bit hidden. But maybe if you have all your interfaces publicly listed, maybe that is going to make it so that you get listed when somebody asks an agent, like an AI agent, like, hey, I'm trying to look for an SMS service or something like that. Or I want to send an SMS, and then it says like, well, yeah, I can do that with using this service. And yeah, sure, please go ahead and do that. That might be that having interfaces listed in a programmatic way, machine-readable way, that will actually put you on top of the very dubious AI selection chain. Because right now, with Google search, you have like the 10 first listings on the first page. There's a couple of advertisements on top. With an AI bot that is doing this kind of stuff, maybe there's only one that is getting recommended. And then having programmatically readable information might become even more important. Now, this kind of stuff, making interfaces discoverable and findable, is something that's what developer portals already do, or APIs specifically. My challenge to you to think about is, how could you make all your interfaces discoverable and findable in a central repository? Are there use cases where And I know this sometimes feels a little bit like, yeah, but we already have portals for this use case, so why would we expose it? But I then at least to look at the developer use case, where a developer would be looking for an interface to get a certain interaction done, a certain integration done, that for those use cases, you would not only look at APIs, but also look at low-no-code widgets, things like that, solutions that facilitate that interaction, that they're also available on the developer portal. You start seeing this in like the Twilios and the ADN, like the API darlings. They started already doing this kind of work where they're not only exposing APIs, but they're also exposing some of these value-added products that they've built on top of their APIs. Because then when AI comes around, that will allow them to find the right interface for the right job. And then if you have the architecture to facilitate access to those different interfaces, then they'll be able to use that also. And then basically we're going from application programming interfaces, where you're building an application to be able to facilitate an interaction. And there's like a two-step process where step one, you build your app, or your integration. And step two, you actually use it for doing an interaction. That maybe this gets concatenated and you get okay, I just do a programmatic interaction through an interface. At least on I was at Nordic APIs 3 weeks ago, and Zdeněk Němec from Superface did a talk about the product that they're building and what they're finding out there in the real world. It was a really interesting talk. Really recommend to watch it. Also, we'll have Z on the podcast to talk about some of the stuff that he talked about there. But he talks about how with AI they're using like graphical interfaces today and what it all means. But the interesting thing for this story is that he showed me a demo where you have like a chat interface where you just like your salesperson, you have a new lead, you had just a conversation with a new lead, you just describe what the conversation was, just write it down for your colleagues. I had a talk with this person, really interesting, I think there's an opportunity, I need to set up a meeting. And then the bot goes through that and says like, okay, new leads, new opportunity. Oh, it's already public? That's super cool. Thank you, Rebecca. I didn't know. That's super cool. So there's an opportunity, there's a new lead, there's a new account, there's an opportunity, and there's a meeting that I need to go and create. And the bot goes and does like asks you like, do you want me to do this? And you say yes, and it just executes all 4 of those tasks in the systems that it needs to interact with. Super cool. Right now, Superface is doing this inside of the firewall, but you can imagine soonish, who knows, something on the consumer side also to do similar stuff. So this age of personal agents might actually not be all that far, and that's really exciting. Yeah. Now these interfaces, I was kind of already hinting at this, and this is a very specific thing from complex adaptive systems. At the same time, they're enabling and constraining interactions, in that they're enabling new types of interactions, and at the same time, they're also setting certain standards that need to be fulfilled to be able to have the interaction executed successfully. That also can help to protect you as an organization. So basically, the way I think about it is that if this is the boundary of your organization, then APIs are kind of like the receptors. Like this is kind of like a cell. They're the receptors that pass through your boundary, on top of which you build your interfaces and your integrations with other third parties, so that you get the ability to control your boundary and to protect and secure your boundary, and still have really broad ecosystem collaborations that you can do. Hi, Hoda. Yes. So, and developer portals are a catalyst for this interface transformation, and that means two things. First, that a portal from a purely developer audience needs to also fulfill the needs of a business audience. So you need to target both developers and business audiences. Also, like if you're thinking about AI starting to use your digital interfaces, you need to explain what those APIs or what those interfaces are good for in a business way, so that they can be discovered and then used in generating some text by the system. And then also that's especially large companies, but also smaller companies and SaaS companies, they need a portal that will adapt to the business side of things as the API program matures. So like having a standard out-of-the-box solution that will not allow you to do the strategic differentiation that is necessary to reach true valuable business outcomes. And this is the problem with highly specialized SaaS products, is that they're there to fulfill one specific function, like an out-of-the-box developer portal is only a developer portal. It's only really for exposing APIs. It's not a tool for building a business solution that goes just outside of those boundaries of an API system. And that's and that's why we choose to work the way that we work in providing a platform that can help our customers to accelerate and to maximize value from this first minimal viable product all the way through to the end of the journey. And this is why we work this way, so that you can iterate and you can explore where is there value that you can discover, what kind of interfaces do you need to build, what are the business cases that you can win with dedicated interfaces, where do they warrant their cost, and then learn about that. What should be your interface surface for your organization through an iterative process. Part two. So what is this maturity model that I was talking about, and how can it help you to navigate to success? So we found, working with customers, that typically this is how they imagine their journey. They start with, okay, we need developer experience. We've had this big problem that we don't have good documentation. Our developers can't find information. It costs a lot of time. We have lots of meetings where people have to explain how to use their APIs, stuff like that. That's where people normally start. The people we normally work with that are made responsible for developer portal typically always start from this first primary need. We need a catalog with all our APIs, and we need to have good documentation so we can improve the developer experience so that self-service becomes possible, and we can make developers happy and more productive. That's where they all start. The second stage, after that has been fulfilled, typically organizations start looking at like, okay, now that we have fulfilled this, we have this catalog, we have this documentation. Now, how do we make it easier to put documentation inside of this catalog? How are we going to automate this? How are we going to make it easier to fulfill, to give access to production APIs or other interfaces in a way that it's more automated, so that we don't have to have a support desk that is treating this request one by one through some sort of support function. Like how can we standardize that, and how can we accelerate that? And then as a third one, and this is most of our customers, this third one is a someday, maybe one time, who knows when kind of thing. People start thinking about business alignment. Typically, business alignment is described as in a monetization like request. Like this is typical what we hear from customers is, okay, we want to do good documentation, self-service and stuff. We want to automate it, and then one day maybe we will also want to monetize our APIs, because our managers would like to see some value coming back. Our executives want us to they've heard about this whole API stuff, and that developers are the new kingmakers, and they also want a piece of that action. The thing is that that business alignment step very often just never really gets realized, and it gets postponed, and a technical team is just focused purely on developer experience and operational maturity, and they just keep circling around that stuff. That's why we came up with the following model, and we first labeled it as our maturity model, but we're now in conversations in the organization, like together with Laura Vash, who's the face of the DevPortal Awards, and she works with our jury members to do the evaluations of developer portals for the awards that are going to be happening later this year. I've been talking about how can we use what we've learned there, how we are evaluating developer portals for the awards. How can we reuse that to help our customers, or to help people in the community to evaluate like where they are on their journey towards a good developer portal? And in that conversation, I think there's a much richer model that we'll come out with much like a bit later, probably somewhere beginning of the year or something like that. Well, no commitment yet. We'll see how fast this goes. But like a maturity, like a more granular maturity model. And what I realized from conversations with Laura is that this here, what I'm showing here right now, is more of a value model, is a 3 components value model for your developer portal and for your broader API program. Meaning that when you're thinking about the value of your developer portal and your API program as a whole, you cannot only look at developer experience and operational maturity. You also need to think about business alignment, and you need to do all 3 at the same time, or you need to do all 3 soon enough. Like you cannot postpone this. You cannot postpone business alignment because you're part of a technical team and it's uncomfortable thinking about business, or it's hard to get someone from business to think with you about this stuff. You need to front load this, because otherwise you're going to be in trouble later down the road. So the way that we work with our customers is that we can go on this nuanced journey that takes them from where they are today, like maybe as a first focus on operational and developer experience, and then go on this journey together with them. And then a little bit more about the dimensions. So developer experience, this is typically how can you reduce the time that it takes for developers to use your interfaces? How can you reduce the friction? Although you have to be careful with reducing friction. You won't have just enough friction. Yeah, exactly. You want to have just enough friction so that you're still using it for like security features and things like that. And what developer experience brings you is cost savings, typically, potentially increase in revenue if you have an API product, but it's not that much, that many companies that have that. And then what we have focused on is flexible content architecture, so that we can have developer experience for all the interfaces that you're exposing. I won't go too much in detail about this. If you're interested in our product offering and how we are addressing these things in specific, like, have a chat and we can talk this through. But very much in the bottom is that we have a portal where you can start with API documentation and then evolve and add more documentation, be those different types of APIs or even completely different interfaces, so that you can be exposing digital components and how to use them inside of a value chain for a customer, rather than just here's stuff that developers can use to do things, but you can like string that together and make a more complete story. And then all the other things that you need for that. And then we also have services to accelerate this. So the key here is that we think that you should have one portal to rule all of these things. Might be 2, depends. If you have a very strong separation between internal systems and external systems, then it makes sense to have a separation between the 2 portals. I've learned, originally I recommended this to have 2 separate portals, now I've seen several use cases where, or several cases from customers where there's like a part of the internal processes that are happening outside of the organization where that distinction is not that strict. Like if you have a large manufacturing company that is doing software development with consultants on the outside, then is that inside or outside? You know, there's a bit interest. It's an interesting question. The key here is that thinking about this interface developer experience function, not as a function of APIs separately, or of like REST APIs and one for messaging APIs and a one for this kind of tool, but to think about it in a holistic way, like how do you bring this developer experience together across the landscape that you have. And then, yeah, some features, and I'll go a bit quick over this, but in our product, these are some of the things that we have to support that. I can also do all the docs, and then rich catalogs with search and stuff like that. And then as an example of, like we have these case studies on our website where you can see different customers and what they've done with our product. This company has both an async API catalog for events and a REST catalog for REST APIs. And then the next value dimension is operational maturity. This is about, as I described, how easy is it for people to contribute APIs to your program, and to how easy is that fully automated, or how does that work exactly? The benefit there is saving costs and increasing, again, adoption of APIs. And here we have focused on extensibility and openness, so that we can build something that can be adjusted to your business flows and how your organization thinks about doing these things. So we have rich role-based access control. We have gateway agnostic, flexible subscription for in the architecture, CI/CD, bunch of other stuff. Okay. And then again, we have services to accelerate this. And then here we think about developer portals as a publishing interface, where yeah, like to think about. This is a question we often get. It's like, can you just suck all the APIs out of my API management system and put it on my portal? And we suggest not to do that, but to have like some quality control steps in between, and then to use a CI/CD process for that. And then also flexible authorization. That's the other angle. So one part is this automation of publishing and some quality assurance on their way. And then the other one is the authorization system that allows you to set up authorization processes that are integrated with your business. Like if you have account managers that are talking with customers about using APIs, then how can you make them responsible for provisioning access to an API, rather than the central API team that needs to do that and then needs to verify, like, yeah, where are they in the journey? Should they already get access, or how do you do that kind of things? And then what we have in our product is this approval, like we have a tool for building approval flows that's very rich, that can draw data from other systems to let people select in a question, like a sort of a form-based system, what all the information that you need to be able to give access. And then multi-gateway integration, so that you don't have to just stick with one technology for this. Typically, larger organizations already have multiple gateways or multiple access provisioning systems that they need to integrate with to be able to give access to a system. And then also like approval flows for altering flows and things like that. An example is C3. They have a really rich documentation, and we've done some integration with some of their backends. We have a video. It's from a little while ago at one of our conferences that we did a presentation together with their then program owner. And what it shows is like how you can create a single place where people can go find all the documentation, no matter if that's only for the APIs, but also like other things like Jupyter notebooks or things like that. Okay. Last one is business alignment. Is how are you going to create, protect, market, and capture value? And it's the protect is a really interesting one, because often APIs are just opened up, and you might have a certain capability, like I've heard this from insurance comparison sites, for example, that and I've heard this from some cases, or like a business where you have a company that is gathering information from across an ecosystem to be able to then sell on a follow-up sale, make a follow-up sale based on that information that they've gathered. But if you provide that information, if you open it up as an API, that information about that you've collected, about the ecosystem, if you provide that through an API, there's a good chance some of your competitors will use your APIs to compete against you, and they don't have the cost of gathering that information and providing that API. How do you differentiate between their access and legitimate customer access and a partner access of a partner company that is actually driving sales through your system? So how do you do that? That's like a really important one. But also, like, how do you create new value through some of these service components that you've built that you're maybe exposing to APIs or in other ways, so that they can become available to your customers or to a broader audience. What we're doing here in our tool is that we're looking to increase the business value of the interaction, and we have this fully branded portal with the business integration and then a couple of features. But I'll and then the services again. And I'll go a bit quicker through this part so there's some time for questions. Again, features. This is an example of a catalog where you have both APIs and other interfaces in the same catalog. That's the kind of things that you can do. Okay. Now, why did we choose to do all of this, not with a SaaS product, but instead with developer portal platform? One of the things that we've seen when teams start building developer portals is that they start bottom up. There's well, sometimes it can be top down also, but when there's like an organizational request, or the executives are requesting better reuse between departments or something like that. But then very soon that turns into a bottom-up developer-led initiative that is very, very much focused on what developers are trying to get out of the developer portal. What we've seen with that is that there's a good chance, especially on the outside, like if it's outward focused, that the developer portal and the API program might not succeed. If there's so what we've learned is that to be successful, you need to keep taking care of your executives, making sure that they understand what is the value of your program, and to have some initial proof of value really, really early on, and not to say like, okay, we'll first build our good developer experience, then we'll do a bunch of automation, and then when we're done with all of that, when we have perfect developer experience, then we're going to start thinking about the business. This is an anti-pattern that I've seen in a lot of organizations, and the risk there is that you end up with like infinitely purely being focused on the technical stuff instead of thinking about the business side. And then at some point, the money dries up. At some point, the executives start asking, like, okay, so what's the value of all of this thing that we're doing? Like, where's my money? You promised me revenue from developers. I haven't seen anything yet. When is it coming? So that's why, so as I said, typically a developer portal will start with this focus on developer experience and operational maturity. And what we propose to our customers, and we started paying more attention to this and really hammering on that, is to already start looking for business alignments, like looking for some easy wins that is going to give you executive visibility, and is going to explain to your executives what is the value of your API program and your developer portal or interface portal or whatever it is, whatever function it will play in your organization, that you have something that even someone who does not understand APIs at all, that they can look at that and say, oh yeah, this is what that is doing. So that you have that executive cover like from day one, and you can start with education, both bottom up and top down. And then you can build a portal that has the 3 dimensions of value for the business, for developers, and for the people that are creating interfaces in your organization. And this is the problem today with all the SaaS products, is that they're not built for this. They're built for very, very technical use cases. Just making a catalog available. Maybe you have to like slap a proxy on top of your whole infrastructure. And then the self-service is going to be really easy, or like, naive monetization strategies that you can start executing, where you can say like, yeah, you can charge per API call and stuff like that. The thing is that these are they're not helping you to prove the true value of your portal, and that's why we've chosen this methodology, where we can go on a journey together with our customers, and we can like start with those initial basic developer-centric features that we implement, and then also start working on some of those business alignment features and content and stuff like that as we go along. Yeah, and this is very similar to how today marketing sites are built in large companies. I'm not talking about small and medium-sized companies. They might use a Facebook page for their marketing, but if you have a company that is a certain size, they will own their own website. They will own their own experience, and that is adjusted to how they think that people should be looking at their organization. And there's if you haven't heard of Wardley mapping yet, it's one of my favorite tools. But in Wardley maps, you have your value chain from visible to invisible, and you have the tools that you're using to address your different aspects in your value chain. So when you go really close to the customer, you normally a utility, something that's fully standardized, does not cut it because it doesn't allow you to differentiate your offering to your customers. When you come close to your customer, typically you'll end up with something custom built that helps to give you an edge in the market. It might be that you're building a product, and that's what you're doing, but you're like selling somebody else's product. There's some places in business that works, but normally creating a differentiated position requires some tweaking of the offering that you have. And that's why websites and also developer portals, I think, need to be adjusted to the audience that you're trying to address and the value position you're trying to build in the market. And that's what we do. That's what we can help with if you're interested. This is our model. You can choose the speeds. You can put it on maintenance mode if you need to, but you can also go slow or really, really fast. And then we work with open source tools. So there's the ability to bring what we've built for you in-house. There's no vendor lock-in. There's also no per seat cost or anything like that. It also reduces the continuity risk. And and if you're interested in exploring how to do a proof of value together with us, let us know. We're working on this new workshop for value discovery. So if you're exploring like what could be the value for your organization of a developer portal, and you would like to be one of the first people to run of these workshops together with us, let us know. I'm still looking for pilot companies where we can do the experiment, and then that could become the first step into a proof of value project that we can do together with the customers.